conference. I will not introduce myself as Holger already did. What's interesting here is, in my role, that I have a chance to work with multiple customers from different industries, different roles, and of course everybody's talking about AI, Gen AI, how it changes. And today I would like to talk a little bit about what is the impact of modern generative AI trends on marketing industry. And to make it a little bit easier and maybe practical, I was thinking about what are two questions we would like to answer for the next half an hour. Let's try to split it into very simple bullet points, even like. What's so different with this generative AI? Why it's so different from what happened at AI is here since 70s, since 80s, and for the last 20 years, there's a lot of companies doing AI. Everybody got T9, or this auto-suggestion, this was AI. So what's the thing? What's happening nowadays? Why it's so important comparing to what was 10 years ago? And of course, let's look into particular use cases, which is applicable for marketing, maybe a little bit of sales, maybe a little bit of media management industry, which potentially could be something normal tomorrow, or maybe some revolutions day after tomorrow. So let's start with the first question. If we look in theory, and I'm a mathematician, I like theory, I like to split things in theory. There is a concept of artificial intelligence which splits to multiple different paradigms, one of them in machine learning. Within machine learning, there are multiple practices. And one of these practices called deep learning, another one is reinforcement learning. Surprise, surprise, what we call nowadays GPT model, ChatGPT, or whatever model is nothing more but actually a combination of reinforcement learning and deep learning. Too complicated? Let's look what is in reality. In reality, the big change which happened over the last couple of years, maybe 3, maybe 4, before we built models for one particular function. It could be demand prediction, pricing prediction, predicting of conversion rate, churn rate, whatever we would like to predict. It not always was called prediction, but somehow underneath, if you look into mathematics, underneath is actually prediction. The big difference with generative AI is that it's not these small one-functional models. It's one big brain which can see, listen, it can reason, it can argue with you, which I'm not sure if it's a good thing actually, and as a result, it can produce different type of a content. It could be text, images, video, whatever. Everybody saw a lot of nice videos produced by AI, and it's quite a complicated thing, because if you look back into it, video is just a set of frames, and set of frames which is split in a small block. Small blocks are actually, every small blocks, usually it's 16 pixels to 16 pixels, are predicted by huge brain. But the most important here is that the models are not predicting some kind of picture. They are multi-purpose brains. I usually tell to people that thinking about generative AI is like teenager who read damn Wikipedia. Who knows everything, he can reason, he's still maybe not aligned with our modern world, who don't understand what is good, what is ethically not so good, but it's a librarian who read Wikipedia with teenage brain. And if you look into medical researchers, if we look into medical researchers, that's actually found recently and last year that the layers of so-called deep neural networks, which is the backbone of generative AI nowadays, unless we come up with a new technology, is actually very well aligned with what we learned from neurobiology. How our neurons in our brains are connected, how they build in some connections, and so on and so on. Technically, actually, if you're doing it yourself, if you're building this model and you have kids, you usually see the difference, oh, wait a second, my kid just learned this, and my model just learned that. But if you dive deep into it, it's more or less same direction where it's going. So my opinion, actually, don't quote me on that, that we, with generative AI, we managed to make a digital model of our brain without actually learning how actually neurophysiology works and how we think in reality. But yeah, let's get a little bit to practice. At AWS, we're working with multiple customers, and majority of cases that we're working on fall into three particular categories. First of all, it's customer experience. Bringing new customer experience, sometimes it's wow effects, sometimes it's AI that not even visible for customers, but customers appreciate it. Another big direction, and majority of operationally heavy companies who are, like, let's say, banks and so on, it's about employee productivity. We want our people be enhanced by AI, and we want them to produce more and work more efficient without burning their brains, without overtime, and not be stressed with the things where machines actually can take over. And of course, optimizing business processes. Business processes, hard thing. There is something that we're trying to crack for last like 50 years since business process management as a theory exists. So far, there are no success here, but I hope with machine learning and generative AI, we will be able to solve it. And if we go to maybe some couple of examples from a customer experience, it could be like chatbots, virtual assistants, any kind of supportive functions. From productivity tools, my favorite one is code generation. I literally don't write any code without AI assistant. And to be honest, I would not even say that I wrote this code. I would rather review the code that's generated by AI assistant. And it's a completely different way of working. And I actually can create something within a couple of hours with the help of this thing, while maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, it took me like a whole weekend to build some kind of small project for my own. And intelligent document processing is everywhere. Like, we are very document-based nation, and we need everything is backed by documents. Documents are usually coming from different areas, from different sources, from different natures, different modalities even. Sometimes it's even, I don't know, voice, right? Somebody leaving you voice message on WhatsApp. Don't do that, I hate it. But still, it's something that is still documents that need to be processed and need to be driven somehow and acted on. And that's something that we see on everyday basis, starting from insurance companies and banking up to small startups who doing like, I don't know, like eBay-like marketplaces. They all fall into all these three categories. Now, what does it mean for marketing industry, right? There was a nice research made by our friends from McKinsey. It was from 2023, so almost 2 years old, which says that 75% of benefits which will come in the next couple of years will come from AI, which is applied in 4 particular categories. It's marketing and sales, product development, software engineering, and customer operations. That's scary, right? Because at the end, it's your industry, and we see that it's a first candidate to be transformed. Let's see how other companies doing it. There are a couple of use cases. I just picked it randomly, tried to explain it in simple words. What I see with the marketing companies. Like, first of all, it's a creative generation. Pictures, texts, videos, something that creating this wow effect. It looks cool, but it's something that also helps you to attract the customer, keep the customer, engage the customer, and at the end maybe sell. And that's something that AI, usually what we did before, we just hired people who doing it on a daily basis, and every time you are planning some campaigns, like, okay, we need the visuals for this campaign, like even writing this classical banners, or making these classical banners, is like, yeah, somebody needs to draw these banners, right? Now you don't need it. Now you can create banner every second for every second user who is visiting your website, and it will be done automatically, and it will be even adjusted to this particular customer. Which brings us to a topic of personalization or hyper-personalization. So again, we believe that in customer cohorts. That's something that's how we operated for last, I don't know, 30, 50 years, 40 years, let's say, right? That's how markets operated. That's how all campaigns or targeting was made with customer cohorts. Now, why we did it? Because cohort is some kind of level of approximation that you can actually try to group people into and give them some kind of label, and based on this label, you can actually try to find a way to attract them or reach them. Think about cohort of one user cohort. You will never be able to do it like with humans, right? But with AI, why not? It's just machines. You are sleeping, machines are working with cohorts. Amazing story. And that's something that we see already with, in different industries. Like, I'm working a lot with mobility industries, like taxi, Uber style, and so on and so on. And they are very marketing-heavy companies because the cost of acquisition of the customers is very high for them. Retention rate is very low, and they would like to keep customer acquisition as efficient as possible. And thinking about that, you need to pay 20, 25 euros to acquire one customer who will make a first Uber-style ride. The whole ride could be 7 euros in Berlin. Sorry, it's a little bit, some kind of strange bargain. But with hyper-personalization, we see that these customers are able to reduce the cost up to 5 to 6 euros per customer acquisition from 25, 27. It's a big thing, and customer acquisition is quite biggest part of their budget and operational cost. Contextual advertisement, content monetization, which also coming from rather adoption or maybe personalization on the brand level. My favorite example is when they send you advertisement with your photos, maybe the ones that's just made just here by someone, in part of the advertisement. My attention rate is immediately growing. It's like, whoa, 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 guys. You just send me a picture of me in completely different environment with Coca-Cola brand or whatever brand, I'm just making it up, behind me. You cannot just ignore it. You will react even unconsciously for that. And that works. And we see the customers are actually quite bold. They're doing like things like, if you're watching football, right? On the football, we have this kind of stripes with advertisement, with the sponsors on the side of the field. And for many, many years, if you're watching on the different TV channels in different countries, there's completely different advertisement. I was always bothered, like how they managed to do it. But in fact, there is no real advertisement in a stadium. They just do it real time. But that thing cost millions in production cost. Now you can do it like with hundreds of dollars actually to have it in a real time on a video that you produce for whatever reason you want. And that's thanks for generative AI. If you go a little bit further, more to, let's call it personal touch, not mass marketing touch, it's lead qualification prioritization. Just to tell you a story, sometimes in Amazon we have this very easygoing horizontal connections. People from United States come in to me and say, hey, can you help us with a customer? Because we know that it's a customer which is similar to you and has more or less the same problem, so maybe you can somehow like do it. It's like, yeah, of course. And companies supporting these connections, talking about culture in a company, right? And the interesting part here is that sometimes I don't know these companies. I said, hey, help this company with this problem. It's like, how can I help with something that I don't know who they are? Like, I never heard this name. Like, they're somewhere in Texas or whatever. Like, and it's like 8 hours of time difference. So what I'm doing, I'm actually going to Claude or Amazon Nova or similar models and asking, hey, tell me what do you know about this company? So I got in a brief. Okay, that's fair enough. Then I'm saying, whom I'm looking? Oh, I'm talking to CTO, which is my typical contact. Find whatever you can about this person in the public media. And then you see all the talks about this person, all these public announcements, all these opinions. And pretty interesting is actually you can build some kind of mental model about this person And surprisingly, a lot of them are quite interesting people in terms of how deep they are in technologies that you are dealing with. And next time, you have 30 minutes of frame to get the attention, to earn the trust of this customer. And for this 30 minutes, you feel like you're talking to your brother because you made your 30 minutes preparation. That's the power of modern research and generative AI. Before, I would need two assistants actually to run it for me and prepare my 6-pager documents. And then I would need another like 1 hour to read the 6-pager documents. That's insane level of productivity and insane level of fun because you still feel that you are engaged into it, you're driving through it. Why not automate it? And we see customers who are actually doing it. Salesforce doing it, for example. Salesforce bringing together so much information from different sources about the customer. Sometimes you're so surprised, like, how do they know that? And that's amazing. And of course, feedback loop. That's what's important here. And every kind of, let's say, sales organization, right? People need to understand if they're doing well, like what are their mistakes. I personally run in a couple of workshops with AWS. It's called C-level conversation or C-suite conversation. And pretty often people come in with quite strange questions like, what should I do, what I should not do? And my first reaction is like, yeah, but there's so many simple questions. Like, didn't you read any books and so on? Of course they read. They're just a little bit excited when they're talking to the customer. They're a little bit overwhelmed. They're a little bit scary because if you, at the beginning of your sales career and then you are talking to some top-notch C-level, you're nervous, right? You want it or not. And they're just forgetting everything they learned. But then afterwards, instead of just doing like video call and saying, hey, next time do like that, we actually put transcripts into it and say, hey, here's your transcript. If you would like to, and suggestions, of course. If you'd like to discuss it, let's have a separate call. In majority of cases, nobody interested in a separate call said like, yeah, that was tough feedback. It's like, don't blame me, blame AI. I think that's a good thing about AI. You always can shift responsibility, right? But yeah. And of course, there is a lot of other cases. Like there is adaptive AI testing. There is a voice-first interactions. Like I believe that the modality of our conversation will be completely different. We got a trust into the voice conversation. Like before it was like rather a joke. Then WhatsApp pop up with their messages, and everybody understands that. And now AI actually can read these messages and produce this reasonable output, sometimes as voice, sometimes as text, doesn't matter. Sometimes I don't write my notes anymore. I'm just dictate it and get it into my Notion or similar noting tool. And that's something that will change, and it will change also, and with change in modality will change direction of customer attention. And that's something that I really, really ask you to pay attention, because that will happen not this year, not next year, but in 2027, please remember, it will be big change. And let's look into real-world scenario. I picked some kind of very well-known companies, not German one, but global one. Starbucks, they generating personal recommendation based on customer profile. They offering made for customer mix of syrups and cappuccinos with different milk and so on and so on. Maybe a little bit exaggeration, but if you're paying $7 for coffee, maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's worth to bring it to the next level of personalization. Salesforce Einstein recently released Einstein GPT platform, which is actually a big platform with agentic AI, with all these fancy words. And they doing nudging of sales agents about, hey, you didn't talk to this customer for last week, since last week, but you actually agreed, according to transcripts that we obtained, that you will send him follow-up until Monday. Like this type of reiteration, like a little bit controlling, but still, it's something that keeps you focused, and it's reactive action where AI becoming your reminder or your smart reminder of what should be done, and it's not overloading your backlog of work. And Shopify, of course, that's my favorite case. I'm working a lot with e-commerce customers, of marketplace customers, like Kleinanzeigen-style marketplaces. All of them are suffering from bad product descriptions, strange, not up-to-date at least, information about policies, about return policies, about frequently asked questions, and so on. And of course, personalized messaging for sellers, where sellers are actually not using Shopify in a most efficient way. The chatbot actually reaching out and say, hey, how about you will try this thing, our estimation saying that you will earn 10% more per month. 10% more per month for Shopify seller, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of uplift. Right? And that's just very few scenarios. Like we have a couple of them in Germany, we have a lot of them across EMEA, but Amazon is actually not the new player here. Right now we're talking about hundreds, and I think S is missing there, of customers who are using AI/ML. And on a daily basis, I'm talking to CTOs, CIOs of different companies. Even yesterday evening, I was talking with one founder of the company and asking, like, what is in your mind? He said, like, AI, generative AI, transforming our industry. I need to adapt. I need to think about it. And that's something that should be on the mind of everyone. And the big question is, so that's great, but what to expect next? Again, that's very personal, not Amazon-affiliated opinion. Feel free to challenge it. We can discuss it. My opinion, generative AI is happening. We passed the point of no return, and it's here. We need to adapt. We cannot say, hey, it's a new trendy thing that will disappear next year. Like, sorry, it's here, no way back. That's the reality. Another thing that we observed for a couple of years is that trust into AI solutions are growing significantly. About like 7 years ago, in a big bus green company that you all know, I was working on price prediction algorithms, actually demand prediction, which is supposed to make dynamic pricing algorithms. And it was so low level of trust from the people who are responsible for pricing. Nobody would ever tell me, like, okay, put your algorithm in production and see how much money it will earn comparing to me as a human. Nobody will say something like that. It will be like, no way. No way I will allow this thing to do my job even under my supervision. Today, I see a dozen of companies, at least dozen in similar area, airlines, local mobility, local transportation, intercity mobility, who just running it, grabbing a coffee from Starbucks and just observing. And it's like, yeah, it works. Yeah, that works. And that's the feedback we're getting from them. The trust already somewhere growing on our mental level, which means that level of adoption will grow. Be ready for new interaction and modalities. It could be voice, it could be gesture, it could be picture from newly released smart glasses, or the case I read yesterday actually about, it's a fragrances. You are going to shop, and based on how you smell, they offer you a smell for you, for fragrance. Like, that's amazing. I never tried it. I only read about it, but I think that's something that, like, it's so incredible. Like, it's completely different way of interaction with the customer. Like, of course, it will be easy to sell it for you because they will make a special perfume for you. And I think it's important to understand that in marketing there will be transformations. What we call search engine optimization, I think it's not there anymore. Now we need to think about generative AI optimizations or similar things. And of course, the only advice I can give you, fast, it's big. It's a first mover advantage, and I think it was never been so important like in this moment of time in history. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vadym. Thank you for the insights regarding use cases in combination with generative AI. Are there any questions, any other ideas for generative AI use cases? Yes, please.
Hi, I just wanted to ask regarding SEO, since you say that it's more or less getting not that important anymore. What are the big changes regarding SEO? How do websites and stuff need to adapt for the LLM world?
That's a good question. To be honest, I got asked about it every second week. I don't have exact answer, but I can share my thoughts about it. I think there will be some new generation of SEO, which will be a combination of classical SEO and something which is adaptable to language models. Like, it's completely different way of interaction. Now you go into ChatGPT, you're saying, I don't know, give me this information from this article. Surprisingly, sometimes you're given articles which are on the paywall, like we should never pay. And it's like, that's a nice bonus, but I'm not sure that Washington Post is happy about it or similar company. And that also brings us to a situation where somehow like content monetization is not only a traffic. Now it's content monetization shifted to the direction where most probably guys like from OpenAI, Anthropic, Amazon will pay you for your content, which is good news. It's again a time for content creators. Content becoming more important and more valuable. It was like 20 years ago, right? We just had no better way to monetize it. I think now we got a better way to monetize it, especially backed by these companies. And again, the question where the money will flow, right? Because somebody need to pay for it. Most probably we all pay for that. There will be no free Google for that. Most of us will pay this 7 euros for whatever model here in 2-3 years. Free lunch is over, unfortunately. Make sense? Thank you.
Any further questions? Yep. Mike is coming.
Thank you. I see myself here. It's cool.
I have one question about your future AI solutions. Are there some interesting solutions planned in the future that will be a game changer on the market? You saw some solutions like Shopify or Sparbox, was it? And I had a question, are there some long-term things like you said before that will be a game changer? If you have ideas for you.
I think it's important to understand that the best adoption and best application of AI will not be fancy and covered with glitter. It will be AI we will not notice, but which eventually, evolutionarily will improve quality of our lives. And think about like 3 years ago, what was it? ChatGPT was released, right? 3.5 probably. Still remember that November. And now, last weekend, I was not able to do my work, or not work by personal stuff, because ChatGPT was down for 4 hours. And it's like, seriously? I got so stupid, I got so addicted to this machine. Luckily, there's another one like Claude, so I had a backup, so no drama here. But it's a question of not revolution, it's rather a question of change of our habit. My favorite example of changing of habit is Uber. How long you're waiting for a taxi? 7 minutes? If it tells you, oh, you're waiting for your taxi will be here in 25 minutes, you say, cancel, right? And that's reality. And these changes, this revolutionary changes is impacting our daily life, I'm talking mostly about like end user life, are coming from the small things which growing into habits. And the reason why Uber back in the day spent billions or burned billions of dollars just to create this habit for us. And that's what guys from OpenAI, Amazon, Anthropic, and so on doing right now. They're changing, creating new generation of habits. And once you're already into these habits, there is no way back. and talking about customer retention, right?
Okay, probably even time is over. One last question. What is stopping companies from being early adopters? So what is your experience in this case?
I think the short answer will be confusion. If you look into C-suite of any size of company, some of them pretending they know everything, but in fact they're a little bit more scared than I am in this world. And they need to run a company and they have no time to keep up with these changes. And to be honest, changes floating. Like even in my mailbox, professional mailbox, I'm getting like 3-5 mails per day about some cool new announcement. It's like, when I'm supposed to read all this stuff? Like, and think about C-level of the company. They need to run a business. For me, it's actually reading this whole stuff is my primary job. Like, and that's, they don't know where to start, and they don't know what, they don't have a reference points to attach these new ideas to something. Like if somebody's saying, hey, let's try to do this thing with AI, it's like, what will be a business case? It's like, depends how much we will improve our customer retention rate. And what is the scale of numbers, 0.1% or 12%? We don't know. It's like, how I'm supposed to make a decision based on this input, right? Because it's completely different things. And that's where I believe, of course, first mover advantage is still there, but it's very hard for established companies to find their niche here and to adapt to it. And that's where actually and at least I'm trying to work with our customers and trying to show them examples from other companies. Do some simulation, do some experimentation, do some A/B testing and so on, but that's something that's still somehow a big open on a question of C-suite.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Vadym.
Thank you.